Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Reimagining Benefits for the Hybrid Workforce. Really excited about this topic. It's just so timely. So we are obviously on a continuum for the last, call it 20 years, around more and more virtual, I think more specifically, more and more flexible work. In the pandemic really just accelerated things a whole bunch, right? Companies had to reinvent their work models, and between changing demographics and coming out of a pandemic, and just the shift to flexible, more digital work that was already underway, I think this is a really timely topic as we just are about to enter open enrollment season. So this is the time when companies are finishing up their plans, the employers are finishing up making their elections for the benefit plans they're putting together, as we enter the season where employees then choose those plans. And so I think what I would want to encourage everybody to think about today is kind of broadening our minds of benefits beyond health insurance, dental, vision, right? And really understand what the purpose of benefits are for. So if we haven't met before, I'm Mike Vanoli. I'm Vice President of Product and Marketing at Assure, and I got two guests that are really well equipped to take on this topic today. So I want to welcome Cheryl Tribula, our VP of Human Resources, and Heather James, Benefits Manager, Operations Manager in our Tampa office. So Cheryl and Heather, welcome.
Thank you.
I think it's an interesting vantage point here. So, Cheryl, you live this every day, thinking about how benefits in the expanded view really helps us to attract talent and to retain talent. And then how do you do that in a way that you don't go broke, right? Because obviously healthcare costs continue to skyrocket. And so you have expectations of the marketplace, you have expectations of employees, you have expectations of the business, and this mix has changed so much. So really looking forward to the stories you can share from your Assure hat. And then Heather, as you serve clients in helping them putting together components of their benefit plans around flexible spending in healthcare savings accounts, et cetera, to really help not just us, but our clients think about rounding out benefit plans that attract and retain talent. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. So what we're going to do today is we're going to unpack our most recent ebook, and it's the same title of our webinar, Reimagining Benefits for the Hybrid Workforce. And I would invite you to hop on the website, assuresoftware.com/ebook-reimagining benefits, and follow along. We're not going to read this thing word for word. Trust that you can do that on your own. We have lots and lots of research, charts, graphs, stats, things that can be really helpful for you guys as you think about how to build a benefit plan and run an open enrollment cycle that will help attract and retain talent for you. So I encourage you to download it and follow along. If not, we'll be sharing a recording of this on demand on the website, so you can just hop on the website anytime, watch this webinar, download the book at another time if you wish as well. So let's jump into our first topic. And Cheryl, I'm going to start with you on this one because, boy, we've lived this one coming out of the pandemic, right? So we're a small employer, as the SBA would define under 500 employees, but we're on the big side of small, with multiple locations around the country. You have some offices, primarily operations and customer-facing, customer support-oriented functions, others that are more engineering and maybe finance and HR back office. So we have this kind of multi-location mix where lots of really strong opinions on flexible work coming out of a pandemic. Maybe share with our audience, some of your learnings coming out of this.
Yeah, I mean, once COVID hit and employees have had that opportunity to work from home for the past year and a half, they've really had the opportunity to understand what it's like to be able to work, but then also balance, their family, their pets, and just have that flexibility where they can pop out and take their kid to practice and come back and work or work from the parking lot. So I do think that it's something that employees expect now. And I do think that it's something that will drive their decision on, who they want to work for. I do think that companies should look at this as a benefit. It's not just about medical, dental, vision. There are other types of diverse benefits that employees are looking for, and flexibility is certainly one of them.
Yeah, it's a good jump off point, right? Because when we think benefits, and I try to set this expectation at the jump here, that when you think benefits, it's easy to gravitate towards health insurance, vision insurance, dental insurance, but really, when you think about why is it that employers even offer these things, right? Over time, insurance used to be to handle the catastrophic, and people paid for things out of pocket as they went. But our economy has obviously evolved over the last 30, 40 years where, employees have an expectation that they will get benefits from their employers. So here we are in that mindset of thinking, what is your benefit plan? What, maybe even expand beyond flexibility. How do you think about it, Cheryl, when contemplating the end-to-end benefit package for, attracting and retaining talent?
Yeah, I mean, personalization and benefit packages is becoming more and more paramount. You really have to look at benefits that meet the needs of our multi-generational workforce and that bring value and true value to their lives. You may have a younger workforce that may benefit from tuition reimbursement, or they may want a fitness reimbursement program or something like that. But then you also need to consider maybe your older workforce who would care more about like long-term disability and things like that. I think it's important, and you can even, it doesn't have to be covered by the company to offer it. I know here at Assure we offer pet insurance for our pet lovers out there. And it's not that we're covering the cost, it's just that we're making it easy and accessible for them to have access to those kind of benefits.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the word flexibility so much of the time, takes us to a place of location. Where do I work? Can I work from home? Do I work from an office? Do I get to share space? What does that look like? But in this context, flexibility really means a much wider range of personalization. Heather, as you work with lots of insurance brokers and health plans who embed our services as components of their plans, what are you seeing across the broader market when it comes to flexibility?
The same thing. They're definitely making it a lot easier for the teams to work from home. They're updating their software so that they can do a lot more video management and different types of meetings online. But just like us here at Assure internally, a lot of these groups have just now started to return to work, but they're also trying to find ways to stabilize that so that the employees can continue to have, maybe a 50-50 balance, because obviously your life has changed now that you've, become accustomed to this work-life home balance. So a lot of our groups, a lot of our brokers and clients, they're kind of, strategically planning this out so that, their groups are, meeting together and doing team meetings a couple times a week, but then they're still letting them kind of have that work-life balance at home because some daycares haven't really fully returned or aftercares haven't returned. So we're definitely still seeing with a lot of our groups that they're kind of doing some in office, some out of office, a whole lot more than we're used to seeing.
All right, let's. I'm going to take this to our next slide here. So acknowledging that the world is changing, and in the purpose for supplying benefits, whether at employers' cost or not, is to attract and retain talent. Given that, let's talk through some of the mechanics of how you do that. I think everybody on the call today understands that's the shifting world, but what might not be as clear is how the heck do you pull that off. So let's just kind of take some of these bullets down below, and Heather or Cheryl, I don't care who goes first, if you want to just jump in. Let's start with technology and supplies and office furniture. How should our clients, how should small business owners and entrepreneurs be thinking about supplying this kind of stuff or not supplying it? What kind of policies, procedures should they have around the equipment to do work?
So in my opinion, the supplying office furniture and supplying basically furniture for employees that allow them to work ergonomically, it's a no-brainer. Many employees will say they have health conditions or things like that. I never say no. I always provide any type of ergonomic item that an employee requests. Number one, for their own well-being, it may save me on the back end on the health insurance, but number two, just to make sure that you're covered from a compliance standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, the cost for, and you know what, I won't put words in your mouth. Give me some examples of maybe some accommodations that you and requests that you've honored for employees.
Yeah, so standing desk is probably my number one, but larger monitors for I have an employee that might not be able to see as well, so larger monitors, headsets, keyboards. Even I have one employee that requested, she had carpal tunnel, so she requested that we have software installed where she could just speak her words rather than typing. So yeah, it's kind of all over the board, but those are some of the main ones that we've done.
Yeah, I mean, you just think about the cost. So as a self-insurer, and we would encourage, if you hop on our website, you can see where we've done webinars in the past encouraging small businesses to consider being self-insured. It's not just for big companies anymore. But as a self-insurer, I mean, you think about the cost of the actual bills associated with somebody out on leave to get treated for carpal tunnel, right, or back problems. It's just not even close to what some of these things cost us, is it?
And not only the medical cost, but the loss in productivity. I know we had one of our key employees had to go out for carpal tunnel for a month and a half, and the amount of productivity that we lost was, we couldn't replace her. She was just an employee that had so much knowledge. So the more you can provide these things to kind of, offset and keep those things from happening, it's a win-win.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the back end impact, and then the front end. If you supply these things, that can absolutely be a recruiting tool, right? A way to differentiate against your competitors, trying to reach that exact same talent pool.
Agree.
Heather, talk to us about, so you live in the world of, the physical wellness benefits and the social wellness as they become components of bigger healthcare plans. What advice would you give our entrepreneurs in our audience today?
So for the physical and social, what we've kind of seen and kind of some of the things that, we've advised our clients and groups is like I said, we've seen such a large workforce that's been home, and and it's a different mindset for these people because they're used to interacting day to day with people face to face. And sometimes that's a hard transition for people. So we've actually been working with a lot of our clients to find really cool ways to have them do interactive, whether it's happy hours or they're just doing interactive meetings. We've made sure that we're turning that video camera on and kind of doing the face to face, because really that social benefit makes a huge difference when you're kind of stuck at home, and depending on where you live. We had actually an example, one of our clients, she was like in a little studio apartment, and she was like staring at a white wall all day. So it was just, it kind of broke her down a little bit. So the client had actually sent over like some artwork and things like that to put on her wall, and just to kind of brighten up her mood and get her, back on track with, just feeling valued with that company since she was kind of stuck at home. So there's just been a lot of different things. We've seen a lot more of our clients that are opting to take through our consumer-driven health plan product, tuition reimbursement and different ways to get people out, doing more physical activities. They're rewarding them with gift cards, for tracking, something we do internally here, tracking their steps and doing different things. Not that they can really feel comfortable going to the gym, or they didn't in the past, but just kind of getting them outside since they're, they've been kind of stuck indoors. So, any way that we can do it through our system, we've been helping them find different ways that they can provide social and both physical different benefits outside of just the normal realm of things that are usually offered.
Yeah, Cheryl, can you comment that the two buckets I think I'm interested in where we see the trends kind of moving is the financial wellness and then all the psychological wellness, right? I think pretty well known the psychological impact of the pandemic, right? People with isolation and lack of contact and limited collaboration. The pent up demand for the physical health care. Maybe speak first to what you see trending in the market for not just the need. I think that's obvious, but what are employers doing? What can employers do to meet this need as a component of a benefit plan?
Yeah, so I mean, just you hit it right on the head. So coming out of COVID, we've seen lots of psychological benefits being utilized and needed. And so a lot of insurance companies are offering, free televisits for mental health counseling. I've even seen where employers are kind of treating out of network behavioral health services as in network to, encourage employees to go and get that treatment. They're also setting like a lower cost co-insurance for mental health. So really, they're just trying to get creative on, how they can provide that benefit to employees to where it's not going to cost them too much, and it's going to give them the services that they need. And then the financial wellness benefits, that goes back to, employers that are providing, reimbursement for tuition and maybe even 401k match. And another thing that we do here at Assure that's not only financial wellness for the employees, but also benefits the company is that we help to fund their HSA plans. So typically high deductible plans run much better than PPO plans. So by us, funding an HSA plan for our employees, it's benefiting them, but it's also benefiting the company on the back end.
Add one more thing. I know this can be a little bit of a political lightning rod, but around not just tuition reimbursement. There's been programs around forever, but student loan repayment. What do you see trends going on there?
Yes, so this has actually been a pretty hot topic for the past 2 to 3 years when I've gone out to SHRM, but many companies are offering kind of like an either or. Would you like a 401k match, or would you like for us to pay back your student loans? A lot of the younger workers that are coming into the workforce, they're getting ready to start families. They want to get those student loans paid off. So they may want that student loan repayment more than they would want the 401k plan. So a lot of companies are, offering both and letting the employee choose which would benefit them more. And then also with that too, they're also contributing to college plans for their children and grandchildren as well. And that's one of the other benefits that's really been a hot topic the past 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you said it in that way, because I think the way I would encourage entrepreneurs to think about this, growing up in an entrepreneurial home and owning businesses myself, and so much of the time you just feel so overwhelmed by all these things, and you think it's an and you're like, well, I just can't afford all this. How the heck am I going to provide good health, vision, dental, and do mental wellness, and do financial wellness, and do this? But a lot of these things, it kind of ties back to the previous topic of flexibility, doesn't it? It's like, what all of us have assumed as, the financial being a 401k, maybe new entrants to the workforce would much rather have their student loans reduced, and you can still incorporate vesting in long-term commitments as part of that process. And the people at the end of their time who have a funded retirement, it could be, student loans or tuition for children, grandchildren, right? So I think the key word when it comes to all these options is flexibility, right? Anything else you guys want to talk about before we actually start talking some of the trends we're seeing in costs and contribution limits?
Nope, I don't think so.
Nope, I'm good on that.
All right, rubber meets the road. What are we seeing? So we know that because not by choice, everyone, millions of people, tens of millions of workers had to delay healthcare services that weren't critical, right, during the pandemic. And so as a result, you didn't get your heart checked when you should. Maybe you're in much worse shape now. Maybe that cancer didn't get detected then, and now it's more advanced. And so because of people consuming these services, and because of the bad thing that happens when you don't stay on top of your health, the costs are skyrocketing. So what are you guys seeing from carriers when it comes to cost? But then also what kind of the changes are employers making in response to this? Because it can't all fall to the employers, it can't all fall to the employees. So talk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, healthcare costs are trending up. Just like you said, during COVID, folks weren't able to get out and get to the doctors and do those surgeries and other things that weren't necessarily needed to happen right then and there. So costs are going up. I know we internally, every year we look at our benefit plans and we get creative on, how can we keep our plan rich without the cost going up too much for the employees and too much for the employer. One thing that I'm considering for this year is, if we have a PPO plan that might have a little bit higher of a deductible, there's such a small percentage of the population that actually have to use their deductible. So maybe we'll have a plan with a higher deductible, but then offer an HRA for the employees that may need it. So we're going to have a $4,000 deductible, but if you need to use that, we're going to fund it a $3,000 HRA. You really have to balance the savings you'll get from having a lower cost premium for that plan, but then funding the HRA for the employees that may need it.
So that's a good transition to you, Heather, because this is the world you live in. FSA, HSA, et cetera. What kind of inquiries and requests are you seeing from the insurance and the broker community?
Yeah, no, that's a great topic, because it's kind of been a whirlwind this year. A lot of employers have gotten very creative. Really, for one, it's just to make sure that benefit's available, but two, to make sure that people are able to use the funds. So whether it's their HSA or their FSA, they wanted to make sure that, because they were limited on going to appointments and being able to spend those funds, a lot of our employers extended their grace periods and their runouts from 2020 into 2021. So where you would normally see a rollover in place of $500 that got up to $550, the IRS actually allowed employers to do a full rollover. So if you still had like $1,000 left in your FSA that you weren't able to use, you were actually able to incorporate that into your new plan year for 2021, so that you would not lose those funds you contributed. So in addition to the rollover, grace periods were extended so they could still use 2020 monies, and they could incur new dates of expenses into 2021. We saw a lot of deferring of dependent care, commuter. A lot of people stopped contributing, so that way they didn't have this large amount of funds that they weren't going to be able to spend. The IRS also made some changes to the parking and the transit commuter benefits, where maybe you weren't traveling so much from a transit perspective, but you were still utilizing maybe a parking, because you weren't going into the office, but maybe you were staying home, and there was parking opportunities. So they were actually allowing people to move funds from their transit into parking, or vice versa, to support the upcoming trends as far as how they were working, and so that they would not lose those funds. And then of course with the dependent care, a lot of people were stopping that because daycares were closed. So employers were opting that into their plan documents so that people weren't incurring all these expenses that they couldn't use. So we've just seen so many trends. A lot of employers have just been doing whatever they can to support the employees, to make sure that they're able to use their money, to make sure they can go to the doctors and not lose out. So anything that they can do, we've seen them updating all of their summary plan descriptions to incorporate these changes that the IRS have allowed. We've even seen employers get creative with building out, hybrid HRA plans, to support, different medical plans even to support their employees that are not even participating in their actual benefit plans too. So it's been really crazy in this world for the last about year and a half, because of the pandemic. But I also think it's setting a new trend of how employers are going to work with these benefits in the future too.
You know what? I think one of the things that is always kind of held, HSAs, FSAs, kind of held these things back from adoption is complexity, right? And just, I think complexity from an employer standpoint, because you want to be able to offer, you want fewer things to administer, right? So you want a simple business model as you can. And if you're an employee, you want to consume things as simply as possible, and you don't want to have, different accounts to manage and understanding how it works. It seems to me that for employers to be successful with some of these new trends, and I can't even say they're new, right? I think the pandemic has in the rising healthcare costs are accelerating some of these not so new capabilities around HSA, HRA, FSA. But it seems to me that education is a huge component to drive adoption. And without adoption, you're not bending the cost curve as an employer. Can either one of you guys kind of comment on, how would you guide entrepreneurs, business owners to be thinking about not just participating, which we think they should, but how to make it successful, how to make it work, and what role education plays in that?
So I can touch on that, Mike, quickly. So education is the number one factor that drives your employees to choosing which plan they're going to be in. And I can tell you the high deductible plan always runs better in terms of cost for the employer. And the more you can educate on the high deductible plan and how it works and the benefits the employee will see from that, the more they'll enroll. I know one of the things that we did, and we went from having 5% of our population enrolled in the high deductible plan to over 50% in 1 year. We invested in a tool called Jellyvision. And basically it's a benefits counselor where the employee goes in and they go through scenarios. Okay, do you have a husband? How many kids do you have? How many times do you go to the doctor? Do you take prescriptions? They go through the entire thing. And at the end, it shows them, okay, if you're in the high deductible plan, this is how much savings you have. Or if you're in the PPO plan, this is what you're going to spend. So just by investing in that one tool, it drove an additional 45% of our employees to that high deductible plan. So education is everything. We also do, when it's time for open enrollment, even before our open enrollment call, we always have just an educational webinar about the high deductible plan and why it's beneficial for employees. So the more you can educate, you just cannot do it enough. More.
Yeah, and I would agree with Carol, even from the third party angle as an administrator too. It's the webinars, it's providing the software so that they can read up and get advice, because sometimes the employees don't know what questions to ask. So, like Cheryl was saying with that Jellyvision, I mean, it really forces you to answer the questions that you wouldn't even think that you were going to ask. So we've seen a lot of our employers and brokers taking on different approaches throughout the year, and planning on doing that in the future too, to incorporate that need for people to get involved and to participate and to benefit them and their families. But the education is huge. So sometimes it's the live webinars, sometimes it's just the surveys and the educational materials, pointing them into an easy way to access that data without having to overread so much, because that's, I think, a lot of times where people miss out is because they're like, oh, I don't have time to read that, or I don't have time to look into that. I just need something easy, and spell it out for me. Like, what am I missing here if I don't take this?
Yeah, I think one of the missed opportunities here, if you're an owner of a small firm and you're working directly with a broker, or you're an office manager of a mid-sized company working with your carriers and your broker, or you're a VP of HR for a large organization like Cheryl, you're likely pretty well informed on these options and the drivers. And it's so easy to forget that your frontline employees, they don't live this every day. And so this is scary and intimidating, right? And so without good information, they're going to err on the side of, I'm not going to mess with my family's health, and I'm going to do it in a way that costs me the least amount per paycheck, right? and that may in fact not be the best for them. So I think you just cannot over invest in training, in communication and education. And I'm making this number up, so don't hold me to it. But my guess is every dollar you spend on education, training, and awareness as you roll out these options probably returns $5, maybe $10 back. Do you think I'm overstating that, Cheryl?
Not at all. I mean, not
Okay.
at all. Just for example, the jelly vision, we spent under $20,000 and we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings because of that tool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this wasn't meant to be a plug for Jellyfish, but go Jellyfish.
Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah. You know what? I didn't even know. I was the consumer of the tool and I didn't know what it was. So it's all good. All right. Let's move on to our next topic. So this one is interesting for me because sometimes I feel like we talk so much about flexibility and not working in the office, but being able to work from home. And clearly, the data says that employees are more engaged when they can work in both places. But then we're just immediately tuning out all of the hair salons, in restaurants, in construction companies, in manufacturers that think it's laughable when companies like us talk about virtual work, because it simply isn't an option for them, right? So there's still the reality, however, that their workforce has a taste for it, right? And so maybe their employees, some of these employees, they've chosen careers they know darn well it requires face-to-face work, but many, they have friends and family who work virtual, and they'd like to get some of that. So what are some of the things that we could guide our clients in small businesses when it comes to satisfying this need, this desire for employees to work from home when it's not possible? That might sound ironic, but I think there are things that we can do.
Well, like you said, I mean, I think places like restaurants, grocery stores, things like that, it's just not realistic. Those folks are not going to be able to work from home. And I think that's where offering kind of that very diverse benefit package for, our multi-generational workforce, for folks of all ages, something that's going to appeal to everyone. I think that's where that piece becomes more important, because everyone's not going to be able to work remote. I do think being flexible with, as much as you can with people's schedules and things like that, that could help with some of this. But yeah, I just think that wide variety of benefit package that's going to appeal to everyone is the way to go.
Yeah, in my brain, I kind of put these into a few different buckets. I'll quickly call it the 6 that we talk about in the ebook. It's compressed work weeks, off-peak start times, cross-training, job sharing, stipends for commuting, and extra paid time off. I kind of chunk those into 2 buckets. One is, even though it's face-to-face work, are there options beyond the traditional 9 to 5? Just because you've done it 9 to 5 for the last 40 years, does that mean you can't, do 4 10-hour days, right? 4 10-hour days. Could you stagger start stops? So there's the flexibility, but then there's also this kind of cross-training, job sharing, knowledge expansion bucket. Heather or Cheryl, how would you advise small businesses to be thinking about this?
I mean, knowledge sharing and cross training. So that can be seen as a benefit by the employee. I know working at a store, because we kind of work as a startup or a smaller company, and we've grown over the years. I know our employees have the ability to learn jobs that they may not have even had the opportunity at a larger company. So I think being able to provide that cross training and the ability to learn larger parts of the organization that you're not necessarily part of your job description, I think that can be seen as a benefit by employees.
Yeah, what I would say in the last 5 years, we probably have published 20 articles on our blog around, what is it that millennials and Gen Z, what do they want when they come into the workforce? And as much as anything, they want education. They want to be part of a mission, clearly, and there's a bunch of other stuff. But one of the things they want is to acquire skills and be trained and stay up and current. They don't want to learn their role in the assembly line, right? They want to learn the end-to-end process so that they can grow and develop in their career. So I think that's a strong component. Heather, anything you'd want to add here?
No, and I would actually agree with that too. Most recently, we've actually had some clients that are, diving more into the reimbursement, for schooling, but they're even going so far to cover certifications, trade schools. It's beyond just the normal, business degree and things like that. They're supporting, any millennial or younger or even older employee that is just wanting to continue on with their education and, do different things like that. So, and I know we've even internally here, it's been offered to employees here for, HR certifications, payroll certifications. So I think any opportunity to, expand that knowledge and encompass the ability to, provide that to your employees is great.
Yeah. All right. I want to get real tactical. We just got a couple topics left here, and we'll wrap. But let's go through the 7 tips that we're providing for redesigning benefit plans. Cheryl or Heather, you guys just hop in. Let's take the first one. Learn what your employees need. I mean, this is a novel concept, right? Let's ask your employees what they want and what they need and respond to that versus just doing what the executive team thinks that we should do. So what's your guidance here?
100%. Yeah. I mean, and surveying your employees to find out, hey, are the benefits we're providing, are they working for you? Are they giving you what you need? We may be providing a benefit that we're spending a ton of money on that the employees see no value in. So surveying your employees and letting them tell you what they want and what they expect, it's a must. You have to do that. You can't just look at it from an executive perspective because we have all levels of employees who are going to consider benefits, in different ways.
And I think, I mean, I feel like I see this as both executive and consumer. I think sometimes, entrepreneurs, business owners, execs, we're afraid to ask the question because we don't want to. We're afraid of an answer that we can't deliver on, right? And so if we ask, hey, what do you want, and then they tell us, and we're like, well, we can't do that. That's going to break the bank. Then you have to run the risk of disappointing them, right? So. But all you're really doing is pushing the issue underground. But what would you tell employers about? So you just told them they should ask their employees. But what if the employees tell them that they want things that just aren't realistic and can't be done?
So I can tell you, most employees will have higher expectations just because they don't truly understand. I know here. A lot of times our employees don't truly understand the value of the benefits that we're providing. So the more that you can educate and set expectations on what they're actually getting, like, total compensation statements, this is what we're paying you in your salary, but this is what we're spending on your medical benefits. The more you can educate, I think you can level set what employees expect.
Yeah. And I mean, I can say as an entrepreneur, your employees can take a lot more than you think they can take to, and when you're just honest with them and don't say, hey, we can't afford that, but explain why you can't afford that, or hey, we could afford that, but that's going to mean a trade-off somewhere else. Where would you like that trade-off? And when you pull them into that conversation, give people a more credit than you might think. That they're smart, they'll understand. Heather, anything from the broker in the plan side?
Just like Cheryl said, it's really just the education. We've seen a lot of our employers and brokers do surveys throughout the year. Some will kind of leave it open and just kind of get the feedback from the employees, but we've also seen them indicate, like, here are some of the things that we're looking to possibly, offer in the upcoming plan year, and then, provide some education, maybe do a webinar on what these things are, and then they kind of followed up with a survey just to kind of see what interest level they're going to have. So especially for smaller employers, where they don't want to overly put too much out there if they don't have a large workspace, but they, want to also make sure that they're, providing a rich benefit to the employees too.
Okay, so we've listened to our employees and their needs and wants. let's bucket the next two together. Study ways to incorporate more flexibility and know your budget, because those two go hand in hand. What's our tactical guidance for if we want people to leave this call? How specifically should they go study for different ways? What would be your best advice?
So I think in terms of, incorporating flexibility and knowing your budget, I think there's another important factor there, and that's knowing your environment. So, if you're this large company like Google, where you have all of these amazing perks and there's lots of work-life balance and there's all these things, you may not need as rich of a benefit plan. Where if you're a growth company where your employees are going to have to maybe work 50 hours or 60 hours a week, you really need to consider the benefit package that you're offering, because some places are harder environments than others, and if you know that you're at a company where you have a difficult environment, you're going to want to offer a richer benefit plan.
Yeah, that's really smart. Heather, anything else from your perspective?
Nope, I would agree 100%. But, the big thing is just the time off, when you are in, like Cheryl said, a different type of environment where, you are working more hours, extra time, the job's a little bit more stressful. I think having, that work-life balance, maybe offering more time off. And then also the big thing too that we hear from a lot of clients and some of their employees is just making sure that there's coverage when they do have time off. A lot of times employees don't tend to take time off because they're afraid that, oh, I might get behind, or, do I have a backup that's going to cover me, and things like that. So it's really giving the employees that, that satisfaction to know that, okay, I can comfortably take a day off, and I know that, I'm not going to come into anything crazy the next day too. So, I think reminding employees of that too, and making sure they have a backup, and the work's going to get done when, they can freely take a day off and just enjoy their day.
Yeah, very good. All right, so this next one, I want to make sure that people understand. This is not a plug. So when we say work with a benefits broker, this isn't, we're not giving a name. Certainly, we work with a lot of brokers, and we have, people. If you want, give us a ring, hop online, submit a contact request, and we'll connect you with someone. But this is genuine guidance. We think people should work with brokers. Cheryl and Heather, you guys work with brokers in very different ways. Heather, let's start from your end. What is the value that you see brokers providing all of your clients? Because you work with lots of them.
Yeah, the brokers provide a huge, huge value. I can't think of one group that we work with, one client that doesn't have a broker somewhere in the mix, whether they're kind of on the front line doing the day-to-day, they're our kind of point of contact, or even really just from behind the scenes. But the importance that they provide, from shopping for benefits, providing that education that Cheryl was talking about, helping them, work the employer groups with their employees, and getting that involvement into those benefit plans. But on my side, kind of as a third party, most of the time the brokers are our point of contact. They're sometimes even in some way, shape, or form is operating more of for like an HR standpoint too. Like they're going out and shopping and getting that advice for them, helping them through, getting them, these third party relationships to kind of drag all their stuff in together, just to make sure that, because, some of your small groups, their HR person is also their receptionist and executive assistant, and, the finance person. So, the broker provides a huge value, as just a day-to-day contact, as just a confidant to bounce things off of. But I mean, the benefit piece is huge in helping that employer keep those benefit plans rich and getting the right offerings to the different size employer groups.
Yeah, Cheryl, and then working directly with a broker, even though we're self-insured, you're still working with a broker, right? So I think, if I go back, 20, 30 years, you probably saw the broker is the person who beat up the carriers for you to get you the best price on health, dental, vision. But now they really are a confidant and a consultant, because this is damned complex, right? In thinking about the broader term of what makes up a good benefits package. What value do you see in working with a broker?
My broker is my everything. I don't know what I would do without a broker. It's not just the benefit piece, it's the compliance piece. Being a small company and having a very lean team, it would be impossible for me to keep up with all of the ever-changing laws and the compliance piece of that. And that is probably the biggest benefit that I see for my broker, is knowing that they have my back there. They've got a much larger organization, and they're able to push those items to me rather than me kind of stumbling across them months after they've been implemented. So I couldn't imagine, yeah, my broker's my world. I couldn't imagine not having one.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to bucket these last three in one topic because I know I'm running long in time. Focus big things first. As budget allows, check off priorities, include the benefits that address all 5 aspects of employee well-being. Just maybe give a final word of guidance for the small business owner as they're, right now, pre-open enrollment season, putting together their plans. What final guidance would you give, Cheryl?
I would say it goes back to point number 1, find out what your employees want the most. And then once you understand your employee demographic and what your employees need, then you've got to look at it from a budget standpoint and kind of determine, okay, what can we do and what can't we do? I think the biggest piece is, communicating and maybe even looking years ahead. We're not going to be able to do the fitness reimbursement this year, but we're going to try to implement it for next year. Just recognizing that you're hearing what the employees are saying and, doing the best that you can with the funds that you have available.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, Heather. For time's sake, I'm going to jump to our next one. We are smack dab, I'd say, in the middle of the planning season, right? So if I think summer, June, July, August, companies are developing plans and strategies for the benefit plans. In the fall, September, October-ish, it's the enrollment packets in setting up the online portals and all the election options. And then, October, November, December, it's the actual open enrollment season for employees. Knowing that this trend is going more and more virtual, give some advice to small business owners. What top couple recommendations might you make for this open enrollment season that's just a couple months away?
I would say from a third-party angle in managing clients, we have had a lot of virtual requests, a lot of virtual open enrollment meetings, being that live person that the employees can ask questions to, because they can do it anywhere, whether they're in the office, whether they're the group of employees that are at home. It's so much more impactful than just handing them a booklet of stuff to read. So most of our clients, what we've recommended to our clients is we're just offering our time to be available to do the virtual webinars.
Yeah. Cheryl, what guidance would you give our clients and small business owners as they enter this open enrollment season?
Yeah, not only the virtual webinars, but having the ability for their employees to be able to do their enrollment online is another big piece of that. With data privacy and things like that, giving the employees the ability to just be able to do it online and submit it and not necessarily, scan in forms or social security numbers. That's actually another piece that brokers can help with. Most brokers will have a platform that they can provide to their clients at no charge. So that's just the other piece of the virtual part of it.
Yeah, I think my advice would be, wearing my product hat for a second is, not just the education, but the process of the enrollment itself. I feel like this whole insurance world has been a real laggard technologically in the marketplace, right? So our employees are all trained to just pick up their phone and just do stuff. They've been trained to become impatient. They have been trained to hate paper and filling out forms, and it feels counterintuitive to be handed a paper packet that you have to fill something out and hand in when you know darn well the person who gave you that packet already knows your name, address, and social security number. So why the heck do you have to fill it out again, right? So I couldn't emphasize strongly enough, it's going digital is not just a savings of labor and a savings of costs and accuracy. you're creating a brand impression with your employees, and employees do not want to work for someone that makes them do old, out of touch stuff, because it makes you look old and out of touch, right? So to me, this really goes back to employee engagement in really creating a brand that helps you attract and retain talent, because the best talent has choices where they work, and they don't want to fill out paper forms. That might sound trite, but it certainly is a component in how they see you as an employer. So with that, boy, this is a ton of information. I would highly encourage everybody to hop out on our website, download the ebook, and read all the detail, all the guidance. But Cheryl and Heather, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. As always, really enjoy your insight, and I'm sure our listeners do too. So thank you.
Thank you.
And to everyone else, thank you for joining today. This is what we do. So we help small businesses grow their business, de-risk their business, demystify the complexity of human resources and payroll, whether that's tax, HR, benefit plans, and then help remove cost by streamlining processes such as open enrollment. So with that, wish everybody a happy open enrollment season, planning in the open enrollment season. Look forward to helping you if there's any way we can in this area. And until next week on our next topic, thanks for joining.